Shalom, welcome to Jerusalem. I want to welcome AJC Global Forum and Davis Harris, the CEO of AJC, John Shapiro, President, Avital Leibovich, the Director of AJC Jerusalem, and Marvin Israelo, the Chair of AJC Jerusalem. And I was thinking, just as on the way here, that I'm joining 2,400 additional advocates for Israel and the city of Jerusalem. So I feel like your partner, doing advocacy practically all day, every day about our city. And I feel very comfortable and thankful. And I came here to commend and thank you folks for the phenomenal job you've been doing in the United States and around the world for our future. And so from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the Jerusalemites and the people that love Jerusalem, thank you so much. With your permission, I would like to share with you some of my experience advocating for the city of Jerusalem. Because around the world, people don't understand how can the Jewish people care about a city like Jerusalem for over 3,000 years? What draws us back here to develop the city of Jerusalem, the holy city? And what is the future of our city? Where are we headed? And basically what I say to people that really want to find out what's going on and understand our future is to take you back 3,000 years to the time where our great-great-great-grandparents came back from Egypt after hundreds of years of slavery. They came through the desert after 40 years, and each of the 12 tribes had a piece of land where they lived and they had their skills and way of life, except the city of Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem was not given to any specific tribe. It was on the north side of the city, between Benjamin and Judah. And the philosophy that King David built our city, it was the place belonging to all people. And at any given moment in time, all the pilgrims came to the city, to the gates of the city, and when they entered the gates of the city of Jerusalem, they felt sort of magic. Everyone is peer. There's a very famous biblical phrase that Jerusalem makes all people friends, because it was the only place in the world for a full 1,000 years that you see all people all day, and there's no host or guest, and the atmosphere around the city of Jerusalem was second to no other place in the world. Jews and non-Jews alike used to come and worship God and go home as ambassadors of the city of Jerusalem. Mind you that 3,000 years ago, there were no Christians at the time. They came 1,000 years later. Muslims came 1,600 years later. Yet Jerusalem is the common denominator of all people around the world. There's another very phrase I like to interpret. In Hebrew you say, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah. From Zion, new Torah comes out. So all the pilgrims, including yourselves, when you go back home, people are going to ask you, what did you learn new in the city of Jerusalem? And because the city of Jerusalem belonged to all tribes, something that was successful in our city automatically became a new de facto standard that all the world's interested to understand. Folks, what I just described to you is not our past. It is our future. And if we understand how to market Jerusalem, the philosophy of inclusiveness, the philosophy of working on the common denominator, the fact that in ancient city of Jerusalem, in 1 square mile, even less, you have more functioning mosques, synagogues, and churches than anywhere in the world. For 2,000 years, Jerusalem moved from conqueror to conqueror. And unfortunately, each conqueror wiped out the history before, and you have layers and layers of history in our city. And when Jerusalem was reunited 51 years ago, we maintain all churches and mosques. You go to the Jewish quarter, you see mosques. The Tower of David, you see mosques. And churches, of course. And we maintain that openness and freedom of religion like nobody did for 2,000 years. Because we understand the value of working and developing that common denominator. We understand the importance of freedom of religion, freedom of movement, freedom of speech. You walk our streets in the ancient city of Jerusalem, you see respect. Folks, last Friday, on the Temple Mount, 270,000 Muslims entered the Temple Mount for the Ramadan prayers on Friday. It took hours for them to go back home around Israel, even Judah and Samaria, and other places. You didn't hear any problem because our philosophy is enabling that freedom of religion and that openness and that common denominator of all people. What I learned as mayor is that when we focus on economic growth and when we treat all the children honestly and fairly and all residents honestly and fairly, we develop that atmosphere that is so healthy for creating win-win solutions around our city. And indeed, Jerusalem in the last decade, and this is my 10th year as mayor, has gone phenomenal changes. We're going through a cultural renaissance, an economic renaissance. Our tourism has doubled in the last 8 years from less than 2 to more than run rate of 4 million tourists a year. And our goal is to get to 10. We've seen very, very significant growth in our culture and sports. We just had the Giro d'Italia, and we have many, many events in the ancient city of Jerusalem, like the Light Festival and others, and the marathon that you're welcome to participate, that had 35,000 runners around the world, and many, many other ideas. And the city is going through a very positive trend, including high-tech. This is something that not a lot of people know. But in the last 3-4 years, Jerusalem has entered the 50 list, the 50 largest industries in the world. Actually, in 2016, we were already ranked 25th in the world in terms of scope of industry. And Jerusalem's high-tech is perceived to be top 5 in the world as an emerging tech hub city. This creates significant amount of jobs, more than 15% growth year after year. And if you take all the economy together, with the support we're getting from our phenomenal Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that's going to speak to you later tonight, then you see that we've more than almost tripled the budget in the last decade, both in investment in operations and in infrastructure for the benefit of future generations. Now, if you look at an interesting observation, what is happening in the Middle East, you will find that by far the best quality of life for Arabs in the Middle East are the Arab Israelis, that part of the Jewish state, except the Jewish state, they're part of it. And you look at their quality of life and education system, they're doing the best. And unfortunately, the worst, or fortunately, are the biggest fierce enemies of Israel. Look at the Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, ISIS in Syria, and maybe somewhere in the middle, you've got the Egyptians and the Jordanians, where we have a peace agreement with them. They could do better. It could certainly be worse. And to this equation, where there's a direct correlation between cooperation with the Jewish state and quality of life and better future, the Arab Jerusalemites know exactly on which part of the bread the butter is spread. And the relationship with them and the investments in them is creating a very positive momentum that even if you've got riots in the Gaza border, and unfortunately we did in the last few months, the Ramadan on Friday in Jerusalem passes swiftly because they understand that we care about them and we want their good, in that philosophy that King David developed the city of Jerusalem, and we're continuing with the same philosophy of openness and togetherness and common denominator. And so, on the other hand, if and when we do have some rotten apples in the bunch, we know how to be very aggressive and defend ourselves and make sure that even in Jerusalem, the Arab residents respect us back and don't use violence to deter us and to make Jerusalem work better. So that combination of being good with the good guys, and sometimes, unfortunately, if we have some bad guys, we know how to be bad with the bad guys, creates that atmosphere that takes us forward year after year. Now, this last year has been extremely important for our future. When the United States, the President of the United States, President Trump, decided to move the embassy, it is not a little thing, it's a big thing. Moving the embassy in that uncertainty in the Middle East created certainty. It made a very, very clear statement to people that understand the city, that love the city, including the Arab residents of Jerusalem, that tectonic plates have moved. And when the United States of America has followed through and moved the embassy, it's a very, very big statement to our residents. And there's no doubt in my mind that it is one major move to help us create more stability, more quiet. When I was in Congress a few months ago, and one of the committees asked me, what's going to happen when the embassy will move to the city of Jerusalem? I said, not only nothing, but it will create that very important messaging to our residents that sort of, it's over, folks. The city is going to be here forever, united, together. We're going to take care of you. We'll respect you. You're part of us. There was not going to be that division that many people stuttered because they didn't know which way is our city and our country going. And that certainty has helped us a lot in creating more calmness in our city, which you feel and you see today. So, looking into the future, when people ask us about our future, I think we should go back and be very proud of our roots of 3,000 years ago, demonstrate how it did not work, and how Jerusalem was dysfunctional for 2,000 years, and we could be very, very proud together and demonstrate how we develop our city for the benefit of the world to enjoy, how we maintain that openness that unfortunately does not exist anywhere in our neighborhood in the Middle East. And we could demonstrate why the partnership with the United States of America, based on shared values and shared thoughts and shared ideas and openness and our wish to create a better world together, we could demonstrate how this is the right thing to do for the benefit of our city, benefit of our country, and beyond. So I want you to enjoy our city. Go to the ancient city of Jerusalem, where kings and prophets walked. We're uncovering some of those amazing places where you can actually just see the stones rubbed by tens of millions of people that went up from the Gihon, from the Siloam pool, up to the Temple Mount. Enjoy our holy sites, and then enjoy our nightlife, and you will find that Jerusalem is one of the safest cities in the world. I challenge you to check how safe your cities are, because Washington, D.C., there are 15 murders for every 100,000 residents a year. Jerusalem, crime and terror together, 1. We're 15 times safer than walking the streets of Washington, D.C. And so when I fly to America, I pray to come back home safely to my city, Jerusalem. So enjoy our city, continue being an amazing advocate for our city and our country. I want you to be very, very optimistic, because I'm very optimistic as to our future. And I will end my short welcome by commending you and thanking you again. I see you. I've met many of you in the United States and in many, many meetings, and I've seen how effective your advocacy is around the world. So you're in many, many ways a strategic partner and a shareholder of the city and the country. And I want to thank you again and see you next year in Jerusalem. Thank you so much, folks.
Please welcome AJC Ambassador.